Guy, do you mean to tell me that this your wife usually beat you up like a baby and then you do nothing about it?
Bro, e be like say you no dey hear wetin I dey talk o. If dis woman hold you no fit move o.
In a small city called Bina, there lived a young man called Richard. He was not a rich, handsome man as you all think. He just repaired people's generator for a living. At the age of 30, he still lived under his parents' roof, and this got them very worried. They couldn't understand why they would name him Richard, and yet there was nothing rich about him. His father was a titled chief man, and he was not happy whenever his fellow chiefs used his son's predicament as an insult to him in their meetings. His father, Obinna, owned a small fish company, while his mother, Amaka, was a pretty trader. Obinna and Amaka trained Richard, their first son, into becoming an automobile engineer with the hope that he would train other siblings. But instead, he came out of school and became a technical generator repairer. This always made Amaka feel depressed as she kept on praying for God to make a way for Richard. She always stayed up and cried in her sleepless nights, and one day, what seems like an opportunity came by. It was a hot afternoon and Richard was working on a generator when an old man parked a black jeep in front of his shop. Chief Mike then came down from the car, and when Richard asked him whether he wanted to repair any generator, he just told Richard that he wanted to see him specially. He further explained to him that he had been hearing how good he was in repairing generators, and he then invited Richard to come to his house to perform a home service. Richard was happy and accepted gladly and told him that he was going to come the next week. Chief Mike accepted and left. But the day came and Richard went to Chief Mike's house to perform the home service, but unfortunately Chief Mike was not around. It was his only daughter, Lucy, that was around. Lucy showed him the generator that he was to work on, and immediately he started his servicing. But after some minutes, Lucy became bored and decided to start a conversation with him. She then began to ask him how he ended up repairing people's generator and what he studied in school, which he told her. She then felt sorry for him and offered to help him, but he told her not to worry, and from there on they began to chat and laugh until Chief Mike showed up. He was so happy when he came back because it had been long when his daughter laughed and played with someone. And seeing his daughter playing with Richard after all the pain she had experienced in the past, he became more excited. He then paid Richard for his service and secretly told Richard to come and be seeing his daughter from time to time just to keep her happy. But Richard just laughed and went home, not taking it seriously. But his family took it very serious when he told them. Obinna became excited and told his son that this was an opportunity that he should not miss. He kept on telling Richard that if he ended up marrying Lucy, it would wipe away poverty from their family. Even though Richard actually found Lucy of interest, but he didn't want to marry any woman because of her money or that of her parents. His mother supported him and told him to take his time in looking for a wife. But his father and his younger sisters didn't back down. They kept on persuading him and convincing him, telling him the benefit that they would gain if he married Lucy. After much persuasion from his family members and few friends, Richard decided that he would become close to Lucy. They began going on outings, visiting each other, and even watching a movie together. And just after a few months of being together, Richard married Lucy. Everything was going on well for the newly married couple, and Richard even decided to stop his business to look for a good job. Because his wife said that she couldn't be rich and yet her husband, who is a full graduate, would still be involved in dirty works, saying that he should relax in her money and then look for a good job. Richard kept on thanking God for blessing him with a good wife and thanked his family for making him accept their advice, saying that she was a blessing sent to his life. But things began to fall apart when Lucy came back from work one particular day, looking so tired and stressed, and found her husband sitting in the parlor enjoying a movie. She then began to ask him why he didn't wash the dirty plate she found in the sink, and he looked at her very surprised. He was still thinking she was joking, but she further added that she can't be going to work, feeding him, and then still come back and do the house chores, that should be his responsibility since he didn't have a job for now. And before Richard could say anything, Lucy took her bag and stormed into her room. Richard stood shocked, still trying to understand what just happened. He then concluded that maybe it was just work stress, but he couldn't understand when it began to become a regular thing. Lucy would always shout at her husband at every slightest opportunity. She would always scold him for not doing this and for not doing that. Richard's once happy home now became a hell for him. He wasn't comfortable staying at home anymore because his wife always reminded him of his joblessness. He had tried looking for a job all around the city but yet couldn't find anything. He then began to stay at some beer parlors just to chill out with his friends and clear his head. But one day something very surprising happened. While Lucy was still shouting at her husband Richard couldn't take it anymore, and he stood up and shouted back at her, telling her that he was not a kid that she could play around. But to his greatest surprise, she gave him a very dirty slap. Jesus, My wife, is it me that he slapped like that? But Lucy told him that she was ready to give him several more slaps if he ever talked back at her again. She told him that she could not be providing for the whole family, and then when she gave him orders, he had the audacity to talk back at her. She said that if that ever repeats itself again, he wouldn't like himself. Richard was still in shock and didn't know what to do, as Lucy just looked at him and signed and then walked to her room. And that continued. Whenever Lucy was shouting at him and Richard wanted to comment, she would lash him several slaps, telling him that she had warned him earlier not to talk when she was talking. And one day, Richard couldn't take it anymore. The moment she slapped him, he slapped her back, and then he received the greatest beating of his life. Richard could not believe his eyes when his own wife pounced on him and beat him up like a baby. He was still in shock when she stood up and warned him never to try that again. And then she walked to her room. Hey, nothing man no go see for this marriage, oh. Richard just lay down on the ground, still in shock. He couldn't believe how his beautiful wife that was so loving had now turned to his worst nightmare. He began telling a few friends and his family members, but no one believed him. They couldn't believe that an ordinary woman would be able to beat up a full-grown man like him. They couldn't believe that he was suffering from any domestic violence, and they just told him to stop playing pranks. Richard began to have sleepless nights as he now became very afraid to sleep near his wife. He began to go out early in the morning to the bar and return very late in the night just to drink and clear his head, but would always come back to meet the heavy shouting and insults from his wife. But one day, Richard didn't come back home. Lucy became very worried as she began to make several calls. But she then received an information the next day that her husband slept in her cousin's house. She made up her mind that she was going to give him a severe beating whenever he came back home. But Richard refused to go back home. Instead, he began to move around the city with her cousin's sister. This made Lucy become very worried as she began to call his family members, telling them that her husband have left her. This made a lot of his friends and even his father, Mr. Obina, to call Richard, telling him that he should return back home and that he should not miss this opportunity he have. But Richard replied them all, saying that he wasn't ready to go and die in the name of being married. He told them that he was out and he was leaving the marriage for good, but he received the greatest shocking news of his life when he was informed that Lucy was pregnant for him. His father-in-law also called him, telling him that he should reconsider his decision on leaving the marriage, saying that her attitude may be as a result of the trauma she had received from her past relationships, and that he should remember that his wife is now carrying his child. Richard just told him that he would think about it. Richard began his business again. He became very successful this time around as he began to repair generators for people all around the state and even selling generators that he had imported from overseas. Lucy was happy for him but also sad at the same time as she prayed every day that he came back home to his family. She tried calling his lines but he never picked her call. She had even tried visiting him in his office but he never wanted to see her. She just had no choice but kept praying that he would change his mind. A day after she delivered, she was so surprised when she came out of the bathroom and saw her husband sitting on their couch carrying their baby. She was dumbfounded as she fell on her knees pleading for mercy, but he just raised her up and then hugged her tightly to himself. He then looked at her and looked at the baby boy and then smiled, saying, "Sometimes the best solution to house domestic violence must not be divorce but separation, so that both parties can understand the value they play in each other's life. And never you conclude somebody because of their present condition, because when mercy locates a man, both those who have forgotten and rejected you will all look for your phone number just to hear your voice." Thank you for watching this amazing motivational story by Golden Star TV, and don't forget to like this video and share to your friends, and most especially hit the subscribe button so that you shall receive notification for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching, and send us a mail now for advertisements and other businesses.